A paedophilia scandal has erupted in one of Poland's two largest political parties after two-party activists were revealed to have been selling videos of themselves abusing children. The party in question is the Civic Coalition Party, known in the past as the Civic Platform Party. It is the party of Prime Minister Donald Tusk and the second largest party overall in Poland's parliament. This is not the first time that either party politicians or activists associated with the party have been convicted for paedophilia. The greatest shock and outrage were caused by the details of the intimate life of a former Civic Coalition activist from Kłodzko and her husband. Kamila L. was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison for aiding her husband in acts of paedophilia and cruelty to animals. Another activist from Zwotów was indeed sentenced to 11 years, but the trial must restart because of political pressure surrounding judges appointed during the rule of the Law and Justice government. Tusk's coalition is currently trying to brand these judges as illegitimate. It has long been known that the Civic Coalition has a major problem with paedophiles in its ranks. The problem is that instead of addressing the root causes, the party has instead adopted a strategy of obfuscation. 11 years in prison. That is the sentence handed down to the paedophile Piotr P. In addition to harming children, the man headed the local branches of the Civic Platform in Zwotów and ran for mayor 3 times. And although the court of first instance had no doubts about his guilt, the trial of the Civic Platform Party activist will have to start again from the beginning. The appellate court overturned the verdict and remanded the case for reconsideration. Why? Simply because it was determined that the trial court's panel included a so-called neo-judge, meaning that due to supposed legal disputes, in reality political disputes, the trial must start over from the very beginning. A Civic Platform activist sexually molested and photographed half-naked girls under the pretext of examining their spines. The case came to light after a report from the mother of one of the girls. Initially, the investigation concerned the sexual abuse of 4 and the photographing of 5 girls. It later turned out that there were more victims. The question is whether all 14 of these girls will have to be interviewed again. Will they have to relive the nightmare, answer difficult questions and recall things they don't want to remember? And this is just one case of many. A few days ago, residents of Kłodzko were shocked by the news of the conviction of a married couple who regularly sexually abused the women's daughter from a previous relationship. The stepfather assaulted the child with the mother's full knowledge. It later turned out that this was not only a case of pedophilia, but also bestiality. The woman was an activist for the Civic Platform at the time. There are so many reports of this that there really should be some real oversight of this issue. I believe that, I'm not sure, but the Ombudsman for Children is the institution with broad oversight powers. Perhaps the Ombudsman for Civil Rights. Someone should audit this, verify whether all the related proceedings and cases were indeed handled fairly. However, while the man was sentenced to 25 years in prison for his crimes, the former Civic Platform activist wife received only 6.5 years, even though the prosecution had sought 18 years. Don't you see any shortcomings on the part of the prosecution here, given that the court sentence was so vastly different from what the prosecution sought? Would you, through your personal oversight as Minister of Justice, like to take this case under your supervision? If not, please explain why. I'm not familiar with the details of this case. These are just media reports that I have. I admit that I will look into this matter. I will ask the prosecutors to submit a report to me, and I will certainly examine it. Kamila L. herself spoke out on the matter. In an interview with journalist Marcin Torch on the website Salon24, she said that there were more victims of her husband and that she herself is one of them. That is why she does not feel guilty. I feel like a victim in this case myself. I wasn't fully aware of what was happening. I was harmed by my husband, just as my daughter and other girls were harmed. I am a victim of this deviant. Media sympathetic to the Civic Platform are also silent on this matter, even though, or perhaps precisely because, the convicted Kamil L. was, until recently, happy to be photographed with party leaders. The question arises as to whether someone there was definitely trying to sweep these matters under the carpet, because this widespread conspiracy of silence is truly appalling. Many media outlets with very wide reach aren't writing, talking or showing anything about this topic at all. A statement on this matter was issued by the Civic Coalition from Kłodzko Powiat. It states that she is no longer a member of the party and that publicising the case damages the reputation of the Civic Coalition. Linking our organisation and its representatives to acts are the subject of criminal proceedings is devoid of factual basis and serves solely to discredit the Civic Coalition's structures. Such actions clearly go beyond the bounds of permissible political criticism and constitute an unlawful violation of personal rights. Because, in the Civic Coalition, paedophilia within the party ranks is a taboo subject. Everyone knows it is present, but it is shrouded in a conspiracy of silence. Tomasz Duklanowski, a journalist for Gazeta Polska, learned this the hard way when he exposed the case of Krzysztof F., a former addiction advisor to Marshal Geblewicz, who was convicted of paedophilia and drug possession. Members of the Civic Platform did everything they could to sweep it under the carpet so that the public wouldn't find out that there was a paedophile in their ranks. And this was a paedophile who was not only a prominent Civic Platform activist, but also the Marshal's representative for drug prevention, as well as an LGBT activist. After the paedophile scandal in Szczecin was made public, a wave of organised verbal abuse descended on the journalist. Thousands of offensive text messages and messages. Reports to the prosecutor's office yielded nothing. Cases were dismissed due to low social harm or the failure to identify the perpetrators. Soon enough, Duklanowski himself had to take a seat in the dock. Marshal Geblewicz, the man who employed a paedophile, filed both a civil and a criminal case against me. I have already won the criminal case with a final judgment, and I also won the civil case in the first instance. He did not accuse me of slandering him or of insulting the West Pomeranian province by exposing this scandal. And there are countless examples of paedophilia within the Civic Coalition and its inner circle. Rafał P., a Civic Platform activist, head of the Gniezno branch of the Great Orchestra of Christmas Charity, and a candidate for Parliament in the 2011 parliamentary elections, was sentenced to 4 years and 3 months in prison for molesting a boy under the age of 15. Robert K., an activist accused of paedophilia, was sentenced in 2022 to 2.5 years in prison. He has been free for several months and therefore participated in the presidential election, which he boasted about on social media. In one of his comments, he admitted that he voted for Rafał Trzaskowski. Entities associated with Robert K. received nearly 400,000 zloty from the city of Warsaw between 2018 and 2022. Piotr K., a former vice president of Gdansk for Education and Social Services, was sentenced to 1 year in prison, suspended for 3 years, for sexually exploiting a minor. Tomasz Duklanowski, however, is still being persecuted by Donald Tusk's party, also for writing the truth about sex offenders within the ranks of the Civil Coalition. Hence a fundraiser for legal aid for him launched by the Association of Polish Journalists. Each of you can help through the website fundatories.pl. The influx of West African migrants into Europe is only now beginning to gain momentum. The migrants are primarily young men tasked with supporting their families in Africa.
Yeah, I want to go to Europe.
I want to go to Europe to make money and come back to Gambia. That's what half of all Gambians think, until they attempt a deadly escape or realize that their vision of Europe as a land of happiness is a fairy tale. We have many young people who are migrating to go to Europe. As for me, I've tried several times. I've tried by land and I've tried by boat too. So, I've tried both. So, I have the experience. So, I'd like to say, even to my enemy, I don't wish you to try that journey because it's a very risky journey. The Gambia is often described as the smiling coast of Africa. It is a country of open, friendly people with strong ties to family and community. Many tourists highlight the hospitality and cheerfulness of the locals. On land, Gambia is surrounded by Senegal. Residents of the region often move freely between these countries, and then, near the town of Bara in the Gambia, they set out for the Atlantic coast. This is where the main migration route runs. Under cover of night, the boat sets out from the Gambia River, sailing along the coasts of Senegal, Mauritania, Western Sahara and Morocco, eventually reaching Europe. They sail relatively far from the shore, far enough not to be seen from land, but not so far as to enter shipping lanes. Migration from West Africa to Europe has reached a scale in recent years that cannot be ignored. It is no longer about asylum for people fleeing war. The problem has become mass, illegal economic migration. Those leaving West African countries are mainly young, healthy, military-aged men. They aren't fleeing the front lines of war, they're going in search of a better life. They know that even if they don't get asylum, a European country will provide them with shelter, food and benefits during their lengthy procedure. At this moment, 7,000 people are waiting for boats that will attempt to transport them to Europe.
If you want to build a big muscle,
I want to help my parents here in Gambia. If you want to build a big mansion to help your family, you have to leave to go to Europe. If I go there, I'll be a truck driver, I'll be a carpenter. If you want, you can go and learn plumbing too.
Go and do gardener.
Many young men from Gambia, Senegal or Mali do not set out for Europe on a whim. They save up for the journey for years. They sell land, livestock and boats and go into debt with relatives. Entire families invest in a single person, usually a young, able-bodied man, hoping that once he reaches Europe, he will start sending money and support to the family.
Oni nie mówią, że siedzą w obozach albo że
They don't say they're stuck in camps or living on the streets. They talk about the positive things happening in their lives to show people here that everything is okay with them. That's why this whole scheme keeps going. Boats have been leaving here every day for the past 2 months. There was a day when as many as 5 such boats set out. This particular one ended up like this off the coast of Gambia. There were 96 people in this boat. The smugglers sold them a leaky boat that had travelled only a few dozen kilometres. Their life savings were lost. They were scammed.
If you have a
good captain, maybe you'll make it to Europe. But there are certain people, they're criminals. They take people's money. They just hang about around at sea. 2 to 3 days later, they come and drop you off. Some people, they drop them off around Senegambia, Logok. You know, they drop them off around Senegambia. They tell them like, okay, there's some problem with the boats. Yeah, there's no problem. They just want your money. The cost of crossing the Sahara and then the Atlantic or the Mediterranean is often the equivalent to several years' worth of income for them. If the boat doesn't make it, the money is lost. If a migrant is detained and deported, they return with nothing, no savings, no dignity and a sense of failure. In the local community, the pressure weighs heavily on him. He was supposed to be the one who makes it. Instead, he returns in debt. This situation breeds frustration, a sense of humiliation and anger. In some circles, this can lead to involvement in petty crime or smuggling, as there are few legal avenues to rebuild one's fortune.
Należymy do osób, które chodzą, spacerują.
We're the kind of people who like to walk around, so we headed towards the abandoned hotel. We wanted to see what it looked like. A local ran past us, just like all the others. A moment later, he turned back and asked us to sit down, politely at first. That's when it started, because he was really insisting on me, and I kept saying no. And then he pulled out a knife from his pocket.
Stwierdziłam, że nie i on wtedy wyciągnął z kieszeni nóż.
It was literally a split second before he grabbed our pouch and ran off with it into an old hotel. Before I even started running, I was shouting at him to at least give me back my passport. Luckily, he only took the money out of the pouch and left behind the passport and the phone, along with the torn pouch. If someone doesn't know what to do with themselves, they flee to Europe in search of a land of milk and honey. Here, like everywhere else, it's possible to make money. It just requires a little effort. Amin has been working all day on the beach for years, making juices for tourists. He has no shortage of work or money.
good here.
Yeah, for me, I'm good here. I have my work every day, you know. I earn some money every day, so I'm good, you know. I just want to go there, visit there, have an experience, yeah. Because I feel it's nice. Africa is nice. Africa is blessed. We have the best weather, you know. Yeah. After his attempts to escape, Pate met Agnieszka. He works for her as a driver and earns several times more than the average Gambian. It was her help and this job that made him stop thinking about escaping to Europe and realize that you can live well anywhere with a bit of effort.
Before, I was having the concept that...
Before, I had the idea that if you just go to Europe, you'll make it. You'll have a lot of money, you'll have millions. But things aren't like that because that's only the idea we have. When we go, we think we're changing to a better life, but I think we can all make it work here in Gambia if we try. Maybe you can try the legal route with a visa and go. But the back way, I wouldn't recommend anyone try that. The biggest problem is not just migration itself, but the selling of the myth of an easy European prosperity. It's a myth that destroys people financially and mentally, both those who don't make it and those who did but discovered that there is no paradise for them to escape to.
More electoral victories and outstanding results for right-wing parties across Europe. In France, the National Rally achieved unprecedented success in local elections. It will govern in at least 40 cities, including Nice and Carcassonne. In Slovenia, meanwhile, the right narrowly lost but has a better chance of forming the next government. Paris and Marseille remain in the hands of the left, but the right is winning in 40 other cities, gaining ground, while the leftist strategy is failing. We know that these victories are not accidental. They are an expression of a profound shift and momentum in favor of our ideas, which is growing by the day. This marks the end of the old world, which is struggling to catch its breath and is wary of political practices out of touch with reality. Although the right has not taken control of the southern cities of Marseille and Toulon, Bardella is confirmed this is the beginning of the road to victory in the presidential election. With less than a year to go before the presidential and parliamentary elections, which are crucial for France's future, Marine Le Pen and I are fully aware of the responsibility that now rests on our shoulders. Today's success is not the end, but the beginning. A beginning for France, the beginning of a patient, serious, and decisive renaissance. A victory for the right in Nice, France's fifth largest city with a population of 350,000. Éric Ciotti, a former politician from the right-wing Republicans Party, will become mayor. The National Rally, France's leading party, added several dozen victories to its tally, following the 24 cities it won in the first round. Its leader, Marine Le Pen, stated that the party won in dozens of municipalities, including Carcassonne, Menton, and Cannes. We are witnessing left-wing strongholds being taken over by the right in medium-sized cities. These cities are now swinging sharply to the right, which shows that there are really two Frances. The left-wing one, which dominates in large cities, and on the other hand, the France of medium-sized cities, small towns, and rural areas, where the right is growing very strongly. Meanwhile, parliamentary elections were held yesterday in Slovenia. Prime Minister Robert Golob's Freedom Movement received 28.62% of the vote in the parliamentary elections, winning 29 seats in the National Assembly. I would like to thank everyone who turned out in such large numbers for these elections and placed their trust in the Freedom Movement. Perhaps some do not see this as particularly remarkable, because we face a great responsibility for the country and a massive amount of work, as negotiations will now be difficult. But right behind it came the right-wing Slovenian Democratic Party of former Prime Minister Janez Janša, with 27.95% of the vote, giving it 28 seats in the Slovenian parliament. Listen, this is unacceptable, both for Slovenia and for Europe. The deep state, which has become very clearly evident in Slovenia over the past 10 days, also has a branch or extension within the European Commission. During the campaign, both sides claimed these were important elections that would decide the future of Slovenia.
This election was a crazy thing because everyone hate another one. It's nothing polite. They are fighting, and so it's one nonsense.
I was a bit disappointed because I heard a lot of people saying that the Svoboda wasn't the best. So it was interesting that still a lot of people voted for them. But I don't know. I think maybe in Slovenia we need more of a dialect between two parties.
I think we should stop with the corruption. I think that we should be more proud about our country, and we should more look about our own problems to decide what is best for 5 or 10 years of our country, for Slovenia.
Together with smaller allied parties, Golob's Freedom Movement would have 40 seats in parliament, and Janša's Slovenian Democratic Party would have 43. So this means that a bloc of right-wing parties will likely form a government and return to power.